This is week 4, and we're going to do a comprehensive review of week 4. So have your calculators ready and some paper. Let's see if all of these make sense. As soon as I do some of the problems I have, we'll go to the classwork for today. Review of the first half of math. Here's number 1. Which numbers are irrational? Remember, if they're irrational, you can't write them as a fraction, a over b. Let's go through them one at a time. What about this one, number 20? Is it irrational? Answer is yes, it is irrational. What about this one? Get your answer. 2 times 2 is 4, square root of 4 is 2. No, it is a rational, not irrational. What about the square root of 25? That's 5, it's rational. I can write it as a fraction. What about 3 times the square root of 7? Nope. Is it rational or irrational? It is irrational. You try to work that out like the square root of 20 on your calculator. And this number here, in other words, when you do the square root of 20, it's 4 and it just goes on and on, it fills up your calculator. This would do the same thing if you multiplied 3 times the square root of 7. It would fill up your calculator as well. That's going to be 7.9 and it just fills it up. What about this one right here? I can add those. That's 7 square root of 7. But is it irrational? Yes, it is. Irrational as well. So I hope that kind of jars your memory on rational and irrational. Remember, if it's irrational, you cannot write it as a fraction, a over b. If it's irrational, you just can't do that. It's not an exact answer. Evaluate. Remember PEMDAS, order of operations? What's the first thing you do in this, in order of operations? Parentheses, I would do that first. I would say 42 minus 2 times 8 squared. Then what? Well, you do the exponent. So you have 42 minus 2 times 64. Then what? You'd multiply right here. So I'd have 42 minus 128. And you only have one thing left. You had $42 and you spent 128. You overspent by 86, negative 86 is the answer. If you did that on your calculator, just like it's written here, and hit enter, that one should work out. There's nothing that's missing there that's understood in the problem. No missing parentheses or brackets. Negative 86. Is there a question there? Remember, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and speak up. Everybody good on that review problem? What is the greatest common factor? You remember doing that? We write the prime factorization. If I wrote 100, 2 goes into 150 times. 2 goes into 50 25 times. 2 won't go again. 3 won't go. 5 goes in 5 times. 75. 2 won't go into it, but 3 does. It goes in 25 times. 5 and 5. So I want the greatest of the common factors to have a 5 in common, and have a second 5 in common. They don't have a 3 or 2 in common. So 5 times 5 is 25. What variables do they have in common? I have a cube and a squared h squared. That is the largest, the greatest of what they have in common. Questions there? What about it? Questions there? Okay, number 4, example 4. Add those. want the exact answer. Can you add those? What do you think the answer is? Well, I hope you said yes, they can be added because they're both square roots of 3. So I know that 4 plus 2 is 6. And the square roots of 3. And that's the exact answer. Now, if I wanted to know what the approximate answer is, I would multiply those out. And it's not exact because it's an irrational number. It's around 1039. And if I did that, I would put a dot above the equals, let the person know that I've rounded off, it's approximate. Answer we're looking for right here is 6 square root of 3. And the reason I can do that is they're both square roots of 3. Questions there? Next example. Compare and contrast these two equations. If you solve this one, I hope the first thing you notice, oh, it's absolute value. Absolute value. It has 2 answers. So if I work this one out, I would say 6 minus the number equals 24, because the absolute value of 24 is 24. But I'd also say that 6 minus the number would equal negative 24. There's 2 different answers here. On the first one, you'd subtract 6 and divide by negative 1. Negative 18 should work. On the second one, you'd subtract 6 and divide both sides by negative 1. So there's 2 different answers. Now, if I check those, both of them should work in the original problem. Questions there? Questions there? Let's say someone said, no, Mr. Babcock, I don't think, Mr. B, that negative 18 works. Well, let's see. 6 minus a negative 18. A minus times a minus is a plus. 6 and 18 are 24. Does the absolute value of 24 equal 24? Yeah, it does work. So an absolute value, not always, but many times, there's 2 different answers. Look at number 6. Compare and contrast. How's that different? What stands out? There's no absolute value. So there's probably just one answer. We've worked both types of problems. Go ahead and work that one out. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Everyone tell me what X. What is X? It says you triple a number and subtract 1 at 17. What is X? Should be able to do that without me telling you. Take about 30 seconds. Well, I hope you have your answer. First thing you do is add 1 to both sides. A number tripled is 18. And the last step is divide by 3. Divide by 3. And we have X equals 6. If you want to check it, you could just like an absolute value. Triple is 18. $18 minus 1 is 17. The answer is 6. Questions there? So there's 2 different types of equations we saw. One with absolute value, one without. Okay, next example. Oh, we did the greatest common factor, but can you do the least common multiple? Let's do one of those for practice. Least common multiple. Well, the first thing you do is find the greatest common factor. Okay, let's do 120. 2 goes into 120, 60 times. 2 goes into 60, 30 times. 2 goes into 30, 15 times. Won't go anymore, but 3 does, 5. Let's do 150. 2 goes into it 75 times. 2 won't go again, but 3 will. Goes 25 times. 3 won't go again, but 5 will. Now, let's write what they have in common. They have a 2 in common. They have a 3 in common. And they have a 5 in common. So the greatest common factor is 30. There's no larger number to divide into. That's the greatest common factor. But that's not what we were asked for. We were asked for the least common multiple. Well, the least common multiple, you start out and write down what the greatest common factor is. It's 30. And then you multiply by the leftovers. Over here, I have 4 left over, 2 times 2. Here, I have a 5 left over. So, the least common multiple is 30 times 4 times 5. 5 times 4 is 20. The answer is 600. I'm saying that's the smallest number that 120 will divide into, and 150 will. There's no smaller number. It's called the least common multiple. More often than not, that's used on adding fractions, and we call it the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator. Questions there? Well, let's go to the next example I have of review. That's similar to the first problem that I had. Rational or irrational? Everybody decide. Put your answers there. Let's take 15 seconds. Rational or irrational? Remember, a rational number can be written as a fraction. Go. You have 30 seconds. Okay, let's take a look at it. 3, 3, 3, 3. I know that's 1/3. Square root of 3 minus square root of 3 is 0. Square root of 3 plus the square root of 3, that's 2 of those square roots of 3. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, or 3. Rational number, rational number, rational number, irrational number. All the red ones there that are rational, I can write those as a fraction. 0 is 0 over 1. 3 is 3 over 1. So there end up to be rational numbers as well. 2 square root of 3 rather, I don't know exactly what it is. Marco.
Hello.
Is there a question? Is there a question? Okay, let's go to the classwork. It's posted. See if we can show our work and answer these. Here's the classwork for today. It says which numbers are irrational? Square root of 16 is 4. Nope, it's not irrational. Square root of 6 times square root of 6 is square root of 36, or 6. That's not irrational. Square root of 2 times the square root of 5 is square root of 10. Oh, that's irrational. So C is an answer. 4 square root of 6, that's also irrational. I cannot write those as a fraction. 4 is 4 over 1, and 6 is 6 over 1. So they qualify as rational numbers. Questions there? Remember, if you have a question, please unmute yourself and speak up. Questions on 1. Number 2, evaluate the expression. Take 30 seconds, either with or without a calculator. It doesn't matter. With or without a calculator. Evaluate that expression. Use order of operations, PEMDAS. Okay, you have your answer. If I want to do it with a calculator, I think it would work it just the way it is. If I want to show my work and do it by hand, I would say 33 minus 3, 6 and 5 are 11 squared. Then I do the exponent, so I have 3 times 121, that's 11 squared. Then it's 33 minus 3 times 121 is 363. If I have $33 and spend 363, I've overspent. The answer is a negative 330. With or without a calculator. Questions there? Questions? Okay. Greatest common factor. Go. Give it a try on your own. What's the greatest common factor between those two? We worked one just like it about 10 minutes ago. What is the greatest of all the common factors? 102 q cubed and 136 cubed. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to play it smart. Between a q cubed and a q, the variable has to be q. So only two that have a chance are a and d. Can't be b, can't be a square, and it can't be a cube for the greatest common factor. Well, 102, I don't know, 102. 2, 51. 2 won't go, but 3 will. 1, 7. 136. 2 will go. 2 will go again. 2 will go again. What do they have in common? Do they have a 2 in common? Yes. And 17 in common. So that's 34 cubed. The answer is A. Hope you said A. There is no larger factor that goes into both of them. Okay? Try 4 on your own. Evaluate either with or without a calculator. Everybody's doing this one right here, either on your own, by hand, or with the calculator to assist. Well, are we there? If you use the calculator, you must have parentheses added here. They're missing. And they're not always put there, that they're understood if you use calculator. Well, if I did it by hand, 5 times 2 is 10, squared is 100. On bottom, 7 plus 3 is 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10. So with the calculator, I would have had to put parentheses around like this, or I'd get the wrong answer. Hope you remember that. And the last one, application, working with numbers. I saved $223, that's positive. Then I spent, oh, that's negative, $24 for gas. The same day I paid for an oil change, so I have to pay, that's money out of pocket, but the next day I get paid, oh, that's plus money. How much money do I have? Well, I put the positive together, 223, and the 95. That's $318. And then the negative I would put together, the oil change and the gas. That's minus, and I would put them together. 318 minus 52. 2 from 8 is 6. 5 from 31 is 26. And the answer is A. On the white cut off. Answer is A. Questions there? Let's go to the next page. Still reviewing. If you add these radical numbers, what type of number is the answer? Well, that involves 2 questions. First, I have to add these. 1 square root of 5 plus 4 square root of 5 is 5 square root of 5. What's your answer? It is what? Irrational. I cannot tell you where that is. I kind of know where it is, but I can't give it to you exactly. 7. Solve this absolute value. Give it a try on your own. Everybody try that. There's probably 2 different answers on number 7. And it's not a multiple choice, so you have to be right on it. Give it a try. Let's take about a minute on that. Do that one without me showing. Brad, am I still good?
Still good.
Try it again, Brad.
Polo.
Okay, got it. I know what goes off. Well, I hope you have your answer. There's 2 different parts. Equal 47 or a negative 47 because of the absolute value. If I work these out, if I subtract 7, Q could be 40 for an answer. Over here, I subtract 7, and Q could be a negative 54. So there's 2 different answers there. Negative 54 or a positive 40. Both work if I check. Number 8, do that. Doesn't have an absolute value, so I bet there's only one answer, and it is multiple choice. Have your answer? You start by subtracting 9 from both sides. You get 5x equals 50, and divide by 5, and it's 10. Positive 10. Be careful though, sometimes fractions do happen, it didn't here, but sometimes they do. just in there. So you can have fractions for answers. This one, the answer is 10. Questions there? Questions on any of them so far? Number 9. Go evaluate that expression either with or without a calculator. I wonder if there's anything missing on that one, or would the calculator give you the right answer? Go. Get your best shot there. Number 9. Evaluate that expression. Well, if you used your calculator, it would work just exactly the way it is. You don't need any brackets or parentheses. If I entered it just like this, I'm going to do it by hand. So I do the parentheses first. 6 minus 10 is a negative 4. First step. Do the square next. Negative 4 squared is 16. Next, I would divide and multiply from left to right, so I have 24. 8 divided by 2 is 4, minus 3 times 16 is 48. Add 24 and 4 is 28, minus 48. Negative 20. Either with or without a calculator, negative 20. Is there a question there? Question on 9. Number 10. The least common multiple. Can you do that without me telling you? What is the smallest number that 112 and 98 will both go into? The lowest number, or if we were adding fractions, would be the lowest common denominator. Do number 10. You remember the steps? I hope so. Still good, Brian?
Still good.
Thank you. Well, did you say to yourself, even though it asks for the least common multiple, the first thing I do is find the greatest common factor? I hope so. That's the first step. So I'm going to do 112. The prime factors, 2 goes into it, 56. 2 goes into it, 28. 2 goes into it, 14. 2 goes into it, 7, and 7 is prime. 98. 2 will go into it, 49 times, 7 and 7. So the greatest common factor is, have a 2 in common, and have 7 in common. It's 14. Then I'm going to multiply by the leftovers. Leftovers here is 8. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. The leftovers here is 7. So the greatest common factor, I multiplied out by hand, or Take out my calculator, and it's 784, number 10. Questions about that? Questions about that? Greatest common factor. It is the smallest number that these both will divide into evenly. Okay, and the last page. Here we go. You ready? 4 square root of 8. Irrational? Yes, it is. Square root of 7 minus square root of 7 is 0. No. Square root of 5 plus square root of 5. 2 square root of 5. Is that irrational? Yes, it is. Square root of 7? Yes, it is. So on that one, you had 3, and it did say select all that apply. The only rational one was B. Number 12, what time of number is this? Answer 12. Take about 15 seconds. Select all that apply. A repeating 8 is 8 ninths. All repeaters can be written as a fraction, so it is a rational number. Now, natural and integers, they're rational numbers too, but that's a fraction, so the only answer that works is B. B's the only one. Questions there? $13. What's the greatest common factor? Go. See if you can get it down your own in half a minute. 30 seconds. Go. Well, I hope you have it. I don't have it yet though, but 160 will in a second. 2, 80. 2 goes into 80, 40. 2 goes into 40, 20. 2 goes into 20, 10. 2 goes into 10, 5. 130. 2 goes into it. 65. 2 won't go again. 3 won't go again. 5 will. 13. 13's prime. What do they have in common? 2 and a 5. Is that it? B is the answer. B is the answer. And the last one, try it on your own. We did one like it just a few minutes ago. Read that application problem with positive and negative numbers and see if you can figure out what the answer is. Let's take a look at it. Said a grocery store lost $345 on Thursday. By the way, how does a business lose money? How could a grocery store lose money? Had people come in and buy stuff. Didn't they make money? Food spoilage. Insurance on the building. Rent on the building. Pay for the employees. All those are minuses. And if they don't make enough, they end up losing money, even though they sold some stuff. So that's a minus. But on Friday, they made a little over $1,400. It's a plus. And on Saturday, it also made a profit, another plus. So I have $1,432 and $854 in those 2 days. 6,822, that's a plus. And I lost $345. Those 3 days, they made a little over $1,900 cleared after they paid all the bills, the insurance, the rent on the building, paid the people, food, taxes to the government. Any questions? Any questions? Am I still good, Bragg?
Still good.
Any questions? Any questions about any of the problems? Beth, do you have anything before we conclude today?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. If you're behind, Mrs. Jackett's been good enough to send you an email. I would suggest within 36 hours of the ending of the class, you try the homework and classwork and get it into Mrs. Jackett.
We'll also be hanging out in study hall pretty much right after this. So if you want to come in there and get some help with your homework, just come pop on in.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? Well, okay, we'll see you a week from today. We have a few more new topics. Nothing new today, just review. So everyone take some practice. Practice doesn't always make perfect, but it gives you a chance. Bye-bye.